All right. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed your lunch. If you are still eating, please do continue to do so. But we are going to get the panel underway, and it's my real pleasure to introduce this panel. We're going to reflect a little on what the Minister had to say, and I've also got my own questions that I would like to put to these three people. So to introduce who we've got up here, Professor Dawn Freshwater, who is, of course, the Vice-Chancellor at Waipapa Taumatarau, the University of Auckland.
Thank you.
We have the Deputy Mayor of Auckland, Desley Simpson, and Brett O'Riley, who is the Chief Executive of EMA, and he's also on the APEC Business Advisory Council. Welcome all. I think, given we've got a few minutes with the Minister still here, I might just start with the question of what did you think of what he had to say? He covered a broad range of subjects there. Perhaps, Dawn, I might ask you to go first.
Kia ora, thanks. Yeah, all of the 5 areas that you touched on, Minister, are relevant to, of course, the University of Auckland and to the sector more broadly. I think a few reflections would be, you talked about health and education, and in the report, in fact, the PM commented on the decline of health and education. What we know from the Brookings Institute and from many reports is that EDS and MEDS, as we call them, EDS and MEDS really lifts the economy of any big city or any city, and it lifts the productivity, but it's also the anchor economy in a recession. So I think what most people wouldn't understand is that it's not that we're recession resilient, but we're counter-cyclical. And so we do create the stability across a city when we're in those difficult times. The points that you made around cost of living, crime, transport, and when you think about all of that housing crisis that goes with that are hugely important to us. You know, for us, one piece of bad news around an international student having a difficult time due to crime in our city, enormously damaging. When we talk about student accommodation, we have 4,500 beds, they're full. We need to build more. When we think about transport, you know, if we're really going to bring more students and staff, we're a community of 50,000 people, just our university. If we're really going to bring more students and staff to drive the economy and the productivity that the government's working on, then we really need to think about how we're going to support the infrastructure. And so I was really pleased to hear what you had to say, and I'm really looking forward to us working together.
Thanks, Dawn. Desley, what would you like to say?
Oh, thanks, Tim. And yes, good afternoon, everybody. Minister, look, I'm not going to tell you what I like about what you said because I'd probably just give you a speech all over again. So I just think it's fantastic that you're prepared to do things. I think the points that you identified are spot on. I'm with Dawn, you know, the social stuff, the crime, you know, other things that Auckland Council perhaps doesn't do, but it gets a reflection of, are definitely needed. But from a council perspective, look, we know that Auckland is key to New Zealand's prosperity, you know, but we need you and you need us. So we've got to work together. We've got to be able to do things that are collective, that are fast, and give Aucklanders the confidence that together we will achieve more. Together, we will deliver the change that they have basically mandated through the vote to get you guys into power.
Brent?
Yeah, kia ora tātou. Look, Minister, I really enjoyed hearing your summary of what the government's going to do, and obviously we've been involved in a number of different forums since the election. A couple of things that resonate with me, and I think with the business community. First, the fact that not all of your plan is about building big stuff. Actually, there's a lot to be said about how we utilise our existing infrastructure, and you know, many of the people in this room will travel to other cities around the world and see how they're using dynamic bus lanes, time of day charging, or congestion charging, as it used to be called, is something that the EMA's advocated for a long time. So I think, you know, that's really encouraging because we can make those differences tomorrow. And how many people in this room say every Christmas, gosh, wouldn't it be great if the traffic was like this all the time, or every school holidays? Well, it actually can be. It's called time of day charging. The other point that I would make, which you didn't say explicitly, but I know it is something that the government is talking about. That is that there's a third partner in all of the things that you talked about, and that is the business community. And you've got a business community here that's had to come together during COVID and work much more closely than ever before, and is up for that challenge. And it was interesting, just looking at the photo above us, how much that skyline has changed just even in the last couple of years. So there are people in this room that know a hell of a lot in the private sector about building big infrastructure and making it successful. Engage them in the conversation, and it'll be surprising the sort of solutions we can come up with.
Yeah, thank you all. Some great comments there. Desley, I wanted to ask you a little about the relationship between central government and local government. And I was struck by the piece that Bernard Orsman actually wrote in today's supplement, where he sort of said a bit of tension between those two actually is, when you look back historically, that's actually quite good for Auckland. What do you think, and where would you say that relationship sits right now?
It's pretty wise, isn't he? Look, you've got to feel for the mayor. He came into power and he's had 3 prime ministers, 3 ministers of transport, and 3 ministers for Auckland, you know. So, and with each of those comes a kind of a different dynamic. But I think, you know, you put 2 type A men in a room together and what are you going to get, you know? All jokes aside, though, it is going well. It's going better. As every day goes past, it goes better. Look, the mayor put out his manifesto. There's a big round of applause in his office when he gets one of the things through that comes through discussions with central government. So, look, I think it is working well. I think it has to be built on respect, though, and it has to be not me and not you, but it's us, because together we will achieve more. And I think, you know, what I try and do when I'm talking to the mayor is just say it's about us, not them, not you, but us, but Auckland. And as long as we put that forward, I think it'll go well. It's getting better, much better.
Yeah, great to hear. I was struck by the latest GDP data that was out just this morning, showing a fall in the December quarter of 0.1%. And considering we've had the greatest inflow of population since 1946, I think that figure's even more sobering when you consider it on a GDP per capita basis. The Project Auckland report is titled "Accelerating Auckland's Growth." I wondered if you could each reflect on ways that where you see the opportunities for Auckland to really to grow significantly in your respective areas. Brett, would you like to go first?
Look, I think there are significant opportunities for the private sector to get more involved in investing in the outline that the minister and other ministers have made. So make it easy. You know, we've gone from being one of the easiest countries in the world to invest into being one of the hardest. We know that there's plenty of international money that's interested in investing in New Zealand, but it's not just the money, it's the capability, because we're not the only country in the world dealing with these issues, and we're certainly not the only city built in probably the worst place in New Zealand to try and build a major city, accepting the wonderful environment that we live in. So let's embrace that and make it simple and get on with it.
To the others?
Yeah, I think for us, you know, planning is a big one. You know, we need to have the housing available. And if we're one of the few councils in New Zealand that actually has a unitary plan, has capacity and the growth projections around that. So our capacity is in our unitary plan about twice as much as the projection for growth. But the construct we have around that is the infrastructure to support that. And, you know, we've got immigration statistics where people are coming to want to live in the bigger city, where they would want to work, live, play here. It's fantastic. Let's just, you know, remember how great it actually really is. But for us to be able to develop all the things that go around that, that's what's actually holding us back. And then, you know, at the risk of a whole lot of media being in the room, you know, we're getting very close to having a part of our region where we will not be able to issue building consents because we don't have the infrastructure. I mean, that's getting pretty scary. You know, and the MDRS, I mean, you know, thank you for what you're doing around that, but it's causing us a lot of trouble. So it's the infrastructure, it's the financing tools, the infrastructure investment, those sort of things that are holding us back. I believe we've got capacity, but it's the development of the infrastructure to support that will hold us back.
A slightly different response from me, Tim, because I think when we talk about accelerating Auckland, we're really focused on the issues that have been identified in the report that came out of the Committee for Auckland on education and innovation, two areas where we really are quite low. And let me just speak about what we're doing at Newmarket. 5.2 hectares, we've owned it since 2012. We are really accelerating the work there. I can't talk about the public-private partnership that we're currently negotiating, but watch this space, that's very exciting. We're moving very quickly away from the wave flume and the work we're doing on earthquake structures and a whole range of things that happen there through advanced manufacturing. And to thinking about engineering in quite a different way to our MedTech Innovation Precinct. But what we'd really like to do is accelerate and activate that to a knowledge arc that crosses over from not just bringing a Newmarket, but thinking about the city campus. And we've brought Epsom onto the city campus as well. And then we're thinking about the Grafton site. If we can think of that as a knowledge and innovation arc and create a commercial corridor through there, working with industry and business and partnering with government, then we are already going to be halfway to where we want to be in terms of our strategy.
Great, that sounds really exciting. Brett, I wanted to ask you, the sort of reflecting on what Dawn was saying there. Obviously, the opportunity for business in the digital realm is something that I know you've been a long time advocate for, but it feels like things have really moved up a gear in the last couple of years with artificial intelligence and things like that. What areas do you see that really assisting and helping in Auckland's economic growth?
Yeah, look. I think it's great to be following Dawn because I can remember when I first joined ATED, one of the things that had never struck me, as I suppose a rank and file business person in Auckland was just the concentration of science and invention that sits in the city, whether it's at the universities, it's the CRIs, and some of our businesses themselves. And I think we have been on a journey, and ATED and then Tataki Auckland Unlimited and other organisations in this room have been helping to lead that. But I think now's the opportunity for us to really supercharge it. It was disappointing to see the reduction in investment in economic development in the council, and I think talking to the mayor and others, there's a recognition that maybe we didn't quite get that right. But I think there's also changes with Callaghan Innovation and amongst some of the other broader public sector changes. So I think this could be our time. The Prime Minister's been talking a lot about a focus on Southeast Asia. Well, who's got a better chance of bridging into Southeast Asia than Auckland with our massive diaspora population, many of the people sitting in the room today. So I think we have the ingredients here. Commercialisation is always our challenge. And I think we just need to think a little bit more carefully about what those commercialisation models are, because the world's changing so quickly. Some of those linear export models don't work now. But I think with a really concerted effort, and hopefully Minister Collins and Minister Lee will help lead that, again, to Auckland-based MPs who know this city well, then I think there's cause for optimism, and also make it easy for those for that foreign direct investment to come in here, because when you go to Outset Ventures or you go to see the companies that Icehouse Ventures and many others are investing have developed, there's plenty to invest in and plenty to grow from.
Yeah, great to hear. We have sourced a roving mic, so I'd love if we could get some questions from the floor. But while you're sort of mulling over what your question might be, I want to ask you, Desley, a question about the Auckland Future Fund, which I know has been proposed in the long-term plan. I wonder if, I won't ask you your opinion on it because I know it's out for consultation at the moment, but I wonder if you could talk just a little about the concept behind that.
Okay, so the Mayor was trying to find a long-term financial income stream for the council, so we weren't so reliant on the ratepayer. So we have traditionally kept rates less than 40% of our income. I think this year it's about 36%. Now, if you look at the two next biggest, the two big income earners, the port and the airport, the port returns about 2% and the airport returns about 1.3%, right? And with the greatest respect for anybody in the banking industry sitting in the room, that's kind of less than what it would be if it was just sitting in the bank doing nothing, right? So he was saying, we think we can do it better. We think we can keep those assets working better and bring in a higher income stream. So if you leased out the port for 35 years and you added what's left of the airport shares into a fund and got it managed, the prospected income for that would be about 7.5%. You'd top it up every year with about 2% of that and keep the 5.5% as your more guaranteed income stream. Because, of course, there are two bits of income that we have no control over. And as we've seen, both with, COVID and with the weather events, that income can fluctuate up and down, and you are very, very much, determining on what you can spend because of from what you've got. So it was the theory is that it's a more sustainable, more regular series of income for the council, so we can actually even pull back further from the ratepayer, make that 36 even less.
Brett, I was seeing you nodding along there. What's your thoughts on something like the Auckland Future Fund being established?
Well, look, again, I think it's a smart move, and we need to find ways that the private sector can invest. I mean, if take Invest in Migrants, there's been discussion for a long time about creating infrastructure bonds in New Zealand, because when Invest in Migrants come into New Zealand, we can determine which asset classes we want them to invest in. So instead of them putting their money in bonds, let's get them, let's get their money into infrastructure bonds or into funds that are investing in the sectors that we want to grow, and then we can really get this place moving.
Yeah, great. Do we have any questions from the floor? Anyone have a burning question they'd like to put to the panel?
Come on, don't be shy.
It always takes a moment. That's great if you don't, though, because I
think that's really good, though, don't you, Tim? I mean, I think that actually, and the minister started with something that kind of people like. They don't, politics 101, you get a whole pile of questions and concerns when people don't like what you say. So, I think that's showing that potentially we're back on track.
So, nicely played there. So full endorsement of the minister and what the panel has to say, clearly. Dawn, no, I'm really interested to ask you about the partnership with Eden Park that the university has recently announced. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
I can, but before I do that, I'm just going to take a moment to respond to something that was said earlier about the Science City. So, I'm not disappointed that Wellington Science City funding hasn't gone ahead, because the reality is that we really need to invest in success, Minister, and invest in success that is really lifting all boats, and that means picking winners.
Subtle, Dawn, subtle.
Auckland graduates sitting in the room. Many Auckland. So half of the beehive at University of Auckland graduates, Minister. Eden Park. So I want to broaden that out a bit. We have an existing partnership with the museum, where we're already engaged in collecting data about the city and about the foot traffic in the city and about the relationships of people coming into the city, going through the museum, and really pulling together. People can fill in, you might have all done this, filled in a questionnaire in one of those rooms in the museum about the population in Auckland and who's coming in. So we already have really good relationships with the museum. We do teaching and learning. We've got a great relationship with the art gallery. Eden Park. So we're engaged. I'm on the International Olympic Committee as part of the Federation of International Sports Universities. We're engaged in a project in Oceania as the pilot site for Healthy Campus. Remember, 50,000 people, right? Most of them young. Really important. And so as part of that work, what we're doing is looking how we could both create learning opportunities for our students, work integrated learning, thinking about scholarships, ways in which we could bring people in to teach and educate as part of our business programme. We're going to be running a Masters in Sports Management. We've also got opportunities for us to deliver exec ed in different ways. And all of that broadens out to thinking about how we work with our city. I know that the cynic in the room would say, well, okay, isn't it just about marketing and branding and brand positioning? Well, what's wrong with that? I'm ambitious for this city and I'm ambitious for our university. No apologies for that.
Good on you.
And so, of course, I'm very thrilled with that. I think what I would say is interesting is we have to get better at celebrating what we're doing well. I've only been here just over 4 years. And we're really quick to pull ourselves down. And we forget that that has global reverberations.
Here.
Yeah, really interesting insights. Yeah.
I want to back her up because, you just need to travel around the world and you fly back into Auckland. I look out of the 26th floor of the building that, we live in. And what do you see? You see a huge amount of trees. You see beautiful harbours. Yes, okay, they're not pristine, but whose harbour is, and then you see our beautiful monga. We do live in an absolutely wonderful place. And one of the things I said to, Murray is that, we need to celebrate the good things. I know bad news sells newspapers, that's great, but we do need to celebrate the good things. And we just do need to actually, I think it's everyone's responsibility to turn around and tell someone sitting beside them, what's the one great thing you love about Auckland? Because everyone does. There, on point. There, I mean, that's pretty clever. But we do live in probably one of the best cities in the whole wide world. And let's just remember that, and let's just remember to celebrate that too.
And can I just add the problem-solving part of this partnership with Eden Park? Our researchers are working with Eden Park on their water table problems with the flood that happened. And so they're looking through engineering research to solve those issues through our Newmarket campus. And they're actually working with them on looking at sports and exercise physiology, which will lift high performance sport. So I think people need to understand what the partnerships really deliver for business.
Right, and taking that flood research off the ratepayers, which we all thank you for. Thanks, John.
And just building on Desley's point, I think there was a reason why the original settlers of this place called it Tamaki Makaurau, and those reasons haven't changed.
Do we have a question from the audience? This is the last call. We do have one here. Could we just wait for the mic just so the stream can hear you?
Thanks. Just a random one on transport, I suppose. I mean, is putting councillors more in charge of transport in Auckland what Auckland needs? Simeon commented the fact that they're looking at doing that, at giving the council the ability to direct the regional land transport plan, whereas other councillors do. I'm just wondering if that's something that you could just explain, perhaps, Desley, what it is that the Board of Auckland Transport's not doing that councillors being more directive would do.
Well, I think let's start with the fact that we are the only city in New Zealand that doesn't control transport, So with no disrespect, Auckland Transport is set up thanks to, a former government to take that away from councillors. And you have to ask yourself, well, how's that going? And I suppose we as elected members, quite often you're held to account on decisions that you make, and transport's always a big one up there. We want an Auckland that you can get around at every mode of transport effectively, and that means walking, cycling, by car, by public transport. I mean, our figures for public transport are coming up beautifully, Stacey, aren't they, to sort of pre-COVID levels? But we haven't got enough. Dynamic bus lanes, and that's something that the Mayor is pushing through. The time of use, the congestion charge, but we call it time of use, to make it school holidays every day of the week kind of style, is something that we really want to do. And I think that if you had that responsibility with the politicians and they got it wrong, you'd elect them out. But if that responsibility sits with an unelected board and group, it's very hard to change. And I think what we feel is that the people of Auckland want to have a say on this. Let them have a say and hold the people to account who make the decisions. But if you've got those decisions being made by an organisation through no fault of their own, is set up in a way that they can't get rid of them, for want of a better word, well, I think you've got a bit of a conflict there.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Desley. Thanks, Mark, for the question. Just a final couple of questions, but I'd like to ask both Dawn and Brett. We've seen from the government that they are planning to undertake the most number of international trade missions that has ever happened over the next term. And I wondered if both of you could reflect perhaps coming from your respective sectors, where you think the big opportunities in that international trade relationship around the world, where is that coming from? Or what are the sectors that, yeah.
Big question. I'll try and make it a quick answer. I think Southeast Asia for sure. New Zealand's undercooked our opportunity there for a long period of time. We've treated it like a homogeneous region, and it's not. And we have to make some decisions about which countries we're going to trade with. Interesting little stat that I carry around in my head: by 2030, the second largest ethnicity in the South Island will be Filipino. So what does that change? How does that change our relationship with the Philippines? We need to continue to build our relationship with China. They are our major trading partner, and there's a lot more we could be doing with them. And of course, there are efforts to try and improve trade with India. That'll be a much longer process. And I think one of the points, I've just been in Wellington meeting with ministers earlier this week talking about some of this, is that we have to also appreciate that trade is two-way. It isn't just about what we want to export, it's what they want to sell us and how they want to invest in our economy. And so if we're up for that conversation, then I think we can grow significantly. I think one of the features of these missions, because you don't want to just go for the sake of it, is being much more focused, much more sector specific, much more opportunity specific. So it isn't just there for the photo op and the press release. It's actually there to to hustle some decent business.
Look, an overall comment would be that as a sector, we're very good at creating the soft diplomacy that opens doors in multiple countries. I would agree with Brett. We are doing a huge amount of work through the Asia Pacific Rim and bringing a big event here later this year, but actually Southeast Asia still remains important for us. Most of our international students still come from China, but it's diversifying. We diversify across a range of Southeast Asian nations, and that's the thing, they're all very different. We're doing quite a bit of work in Indonesia, Vietnam, and India. India is a much longer game. I was there in February. We've got fantastic partnerships and fantastic relationships. We still really struggle, actually, with a number of issues, and immigration is one of them, but it's a two-way street. And even if we're not building ecosystems there, we have to create something that we're leaving behind as a legacy. Here's another thing, though. Horizons Europe, and Simon knows about this, several people around the room know about this. The EU has significant funding available for us to be able to access. I've persuaded MB through long pieces of work for us to be able to become associate members. What that means is that we can be now partnering with European institutions to build grants for sustainable cities, for cities that are, really working on cultural precincts, for a whole range of things. And so I'm envisaging the opportunity for accelerating Auckland to be also around pulling together people, including public-private partnerships, to access Horizons Europe funding. And I think while we're talking about delegations and trade delegations, we also have to think about opportunities for building on our existing relationships where we've got, tried and tested solid ground.
Yeah, brilliant. It's fantastic to hear the opportunities, but also to hear that we are really thinking internationally once again after those sort of pandemic closed border years. Final question before we wrap up. The Minister started by talking about optimism for the city. And so I thought to continue in that line of thinking, could each of you reflect on something that you're looking forward to for Auckland over the coming 12 months? And I might put that to you first, Dawn.
Yeah, I think I'd go back to the work. Well, let me start with the fact that if you haven't been down Simon Street, you need to go and have a look at B201, really great name, our new the first 6 Green Star building. And opposite that, the new rec centre, because the hoardings are off. It is going to be a state-of-the-art recreation centre where you can teach, learn, run, go to a conference and sit and watch a sports match all in the same place.
And I love your lights that you're doing too.
It's fantastic. Yeah.
Desley.
It's got to be a city deal for Auckland. It's got to be, for once and all, locking something in that is positive for the city, that shows that, government and council are working together, are going to deliver, and they're going to deliver it fast and better. I think that'll be great.
Brilliant. Brett?
I'll pick a slightly different theme actually just to finish with, and that's around sustainability and around climate change, because I think there are a lot of great initiatives underway within the city around reducing our carbon footprint. And it'll be great, the electric ferries, more electric buses, our newest Auckland Transport bus driver next to me. And I think there are some really positive signs that not only are we going to make it a more prosperous and better functioning city, but also, environmentally a better city. And there's a lot of work to do in that space. So it's great to see that focus hasn't been lost as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Brilliant to end on a high. Thank you all very much. Could you give the panel, Brett, Desley and Dawn, a huge round of applause for joining us today? Yeah, and can I invite Duncan Bridgeman, Managing Editor of NZ Business, to the stage to give a vote of thanks?
Afternoon, everyone. Kia ora. I'm Duncan Bridgeman, Managing Editor of NZ Business, which includes Business Desk and Business Herald. It's my duty to give a vote of thanks for today for everyone that participated in Project Auckland and today's event. Listening to the panel and the audience, there's obviously a lot of interest in the future of the city, and I think it's great that there's been some really positive approaches taken, some positive feedback from the panel as well. Last year, Mayor Wayne Brown, he called for central government to come to the party and deliver some promises to Auckland in terms of solutions to help on the infrastructure issues. And so it was great to have Minister Brown here today and to give his vision and his government's vision for Auckland, alongside Deputy Mayor Desley Simpson and every other distinguished guest in here really enjoyed what they were talking about. So I think, from my point of view, there's a lot of challenges that are facing Auckland, so there's a lot to be done, and I think today's discussion really advances that. And the media has a part to play to call to account those that are making the decisions and making sure that taxpayer money, ratepayer money is spent and allocated wisely. So thanks very much to Fran O'Sullivan for another great Project Auckland edition today. It's 32 pages in New Zealand's Herald this morning, and be sure to pick up a copy, or you can read it online at nzherald.co.nz in the premium section, of course. And I'd like to thank all our sponsors and our supporters who without we wouldn't be able to do what we do. So yeah, just I feel free to hang around afterwards for some networking, but I'd like everyone to join me in appreciating the panel and those that spoke today. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Duncan. And look, just to repeat what Duncan said, thank you all very much for being here today and for everyone that participated. I think the fact that this room is so full just reminds us that Auckland's future is so critical. As the Minister says, when Auckland succeeds, New Zealand succeeds. So this does bring today's Project Auckland lunch to a close. Do feel free to hang around and network. Do take a copy of the report with you on your way out. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the day and the remainder of the week ahead. Thanks very much.